You're locked into the Liberty Flames podcast, powered by Rogers Heating and Cooling, servicing Greater Lynchburg's HVAC and electrical needs. Schedule your service today at callrogers.com.
Light 'em up! Touchdown, Liberty!
Gray with the catch, cuts it up, good block on the outside.
Get ready for double coverage with Nick Pierce and Pat Kelly, the weekly podcast that takes you inside Flames football and around the nation before game day. Now, alongside former Flames All-Conference wide receiver Pat Kelly, here's your host, Nick Pierce.
Huge weekend coming up for the Liberty Flames. Welcome back into the podcast. This is double coverage on the Liberty Flames podcast, powered by Rogers Heating and Cooling. I'm Nick Pierce. He's Pat Kelly. Glad to have you along here once again this week as we walk you up to game day. Liberty and Missouri State coming up this weekend. Conference USA showdown at Williams Stadium in Lynchburg. We've got all the particulars coming up here this week. Flames are flying high at the moment. 3-game winning streak. Liberty's even the record now to 500 for the season at 4-4. And the Flames are 3-1 in the conference, staying right in the thick of things. Still trying to get to that Conference USA title game the first weekend in December. And all of the goals for the Flames right now still in front of them. We're going to chop all of that up here for you. Maybe talk some bowl projections, which looking a lot more positive on that front now here as well after the 1-4 start. The Flames look like they are going to get back to another bowl game here this year. Got to win 2 of the last 4 to make that happen. But a lot of good things to talk about after last week's big win over Delaware, 59-30 on homecoming. Pat, I'll bring you in on that note. Welcome back in. Man, what a fun time that was last weekend. I know we got to catch up with some old friends, see some former teammates probably in your case, and you got to watch the Flames take care of business. That's what homecoming's supposed to be, right?
It was great. It truly was. It was a fun game. I mean, you put up a bunch of points, a bunch of yards. I had the opportunity to chat with Manny Rojas before the game, their defensive coordinator. Correct me if I'm wrong, Liberty's all-time leading tackler, I think.
You put me on the spot there, but I think you're right.
So it was cool to kind of reunite with him, tell some old stories of when I was still playing and he was an assistant coach and just screaming at me all the time. But yeah, it couldn't have ended any better with Liberty getting a victory over the weekend.
Absolutely, and got to be the most complete performance that we've seen so far out of the Flames. We'll get into some of that here in just a minute. But talk about that conference title race, where the Flames are right now, 3-1 in the league. Actually tied with this Missouri State team that the Flames are going to see here coming up this weekend. Both of them 3-1. Missouri State having a good year, a transition year coming up. Conference USA coming up to FBS for the first time. 5-3 are the Bears. But the Flames right now just a game out of first place, a game and a half, I guess. No, just a game out of first place. Kennesaw State and Jacksonville State both 4-0 coming into this week. Western Kentucky 5-1. So the Flames and the Hilltoppers in the mix there as well. And, you know, Coach Chadwell called it basically an elimination game coming up here this weekend. But and it might be, you know. I mean, after that, you've got 1 2-loss team in Louisiana Tech and then a bunch of 3-loss teams and 4-loss teams after that. So maybe this could be an elimination type situation here for the Flames this weekend. Now, granted, Missouri State's not eligible to play in the conference championship game or eligible for a bowl game this year, technically. A lot of varying opinions on that. Maybe we'll get into that as well. But this is a big one, and they're all big ones. It was a big one last weekend. You're almost playing playoff football every week, aren't you?
I think you are, and not to be super corny, but they're must-wins from here on out, and each one of these has to be treated like a Super Bowl. You can't get caught looking ahead to Louisiana Tech or to Kennesaw or to whomever. This is a good Missouri State team, so you really do have to win from here on out. Are there ways that you could make it to the conference championship with 2 losses? I'm sure, yes, but it would be a whole lot harder. So, I mean, just take care of your business, and things are going to kind of shake out the way they should.
Well, and as it is, it's not like the Flames control their own destiny. I mean, you've still got two teams that are unbeaten in front. Now, granted, you play one of them, Kennesaw State. The Flames will see the Owls in the last weekend of the regular season. Do not see Western Kentucky this year. But the way this thing's going, man, that game November 29th at Williams Stadium, there could be a whole heck of a lot on the line when the Owls come into town.
There certainly could, and not that you're looking into the past, but I mean they kind of smacked you around a little bit last year, and it was arguably the most embarrassing loss the team's ever had. So again, not to kind of look back to last year, but yeah, a lot's going to be on the line, I think, if you keep handling your business moving forward.
Receipts were kept, I'm sure, for the guys that were down there and experienced that in Cobb County last year. But again, not to get too far ahead, but you start to look at how this thing is unfolding. Liberty's starting to play its best brand of football here over the last 3 weeks, and I think certainly over this last game. I mean, you look at 59 points, that's a season high. First time the Flames have scored 50 plus in 2 years. The total offense, season high, 561 yards, 282 rushing yards for Liberty. Evan Dickens goes crazy out of the backfield for 4 touchdowns. Is this not what we kind of not necessarily the numbers, the gaudy numbers that were put up, but just the efficiency, the way that the Flames operated? Is this not kind of what we expected to see all year?
It certainly is. I think, we've thrown these numbers around, but your Fiesta Bowl season, you led the nation in rushing. All 136 teams, you were number one. The next season, even though you were kind of a little bit of a down year, finished 8-4, you were fourth in the country in rushing, 258 rushing yards a game. So you got used to seeing an offense that even if you weren't necessarily winning every single game, it was an efficient offense. You're dominating. You're converting on third down at a 45 to 50% clip. And we just hadn't seen that this year. Saturday was the most complete offensive performance that we've seen all season. We said going into the game, Liberty hadn't rushed for 200 yards the entire season. On Saturday, they rushed for almost 300 yards. So it kind of it's good to kind of feel spoiled again in terms of seeing what offenses of the past had kind of looked like.
Just some really gaudy numbers, like I said, and I think one of the more impressive. We talked about it going into the game, right? I thought Liberty had to get the run game going against Delaware. You knew that what Minicucci, their quarterback, and their offense was capable of doing. Best way to limit them is to keep them off the field. I thought the Flames kind of checked that box for the most part. Outside of some explosive plays they gave up in the third quarter, which we'll talk about. You had to be good in the red zone. You had to be good on third down. Check those boxes. Flames were 6 of 7 in the red zone, and the one time they did not score was at the end of the game when Jaden Bradford was taking a knee. So that's exactly, if you could draw it up as a head coach, especially an offensive mind like Jamie Chadwell, that's what you're looking for.
No, there's no doubt about that. And Nick, we spouted off some of those numbers. I think one thing that the running game really opened up was the passing game for Vasco and these receivers. You threw for 279 yards, but throwing lanes were there all night long, and it's because you were in those second and short, third and short. So it opens up your entire playbook. You're not playing offense with a hand tied behind your back where it's 3rd and 12, 3rd and 15. You don't have to be predictable. So the running game fed into the passing game. It truly was kind of a complete performance.
So now the question is, can you consistently expect this kind of operation week to week? Now, I'm not saying that they're going to go out and score 59 points every week. I'm not saying that they're going to have all these yards and that kind of efficiency, but just you can't necessarily put a number to it all the time, but can you expect them to go out and be productive and not have a bunch of negative plays or have to punt 3 straight times? It's kind of that string of consistency that we've talked about that's really just been lacking all year. What you saw last Saturday, do you think that this team has turned a corner?
I think yes, and I think you can certainly replicate what you did. Number one, the 18 days off helped clearly. And granted, Delaware did not have the best defense, but you came out and you had to execute, and you did. I think what I'd like to see, and we're going to find out Saturday, is if they've landed a little bit on kind of their bell cow running back. So Dickens had 22 carries on Saturday. I think your next leading runner had 5 carries. We've been spoiled a little bit in the past where You had an Aaron Bedgood who's catching your option pitches. You had Quentin Cooley kind of running up the middle. So this offense may not be that offense this year, and that's okay. Your identity has to evolve with the puzzle pieces that you've got. So I'm curious if this Liberty offense had its bye, those 18 days off, you give the ball to Dickens 22 times, you run for almost 300 yards. I'm curious if this is a kind of a light bulb. Hey, maybe we give him 70 to 75% of these carries and kind of ride him the rest of the way. We'll find out Saturday, but I do think it's repeatable.
Well, and Ethan Vasco, we talked about his numbers to go out there 14 to 20 and have the kind of performance that he did. What was it, 70% completion percentage for Vasco, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Talked a lot about his health as well. And we know he got banged up at Jacksonville State early in the year. Didn't really know he was hurt after that game. He took some shots in that game. He was fighting a shoulder thing, and then he has to come out against James Madison. He misses the next week against Old Dominion. Then he comes back in against UTEP. Looks good on the first drive. Not as consistent after that. Is there something to it, you think, with the shoulder? And now maybe he's, after that 18-day break where they basically had a series of mini camps, workout types of workouts. Do you think that there's something to that maybe now he's just healthy and now we're maybe getting the best version of him?
It's possible. I mean, there's a reason why in a season you're fighting to get to the bye week. Guys are looking forward to getting to a bye week, and in this case, it was an extended bye week. It's time to get healthy. Time off and modern medicine works wonders. So I don't know what his rehab looked like. I don't know what doctors were prescribing for him to kind of get over the hump. But yeah, I mean, in addition to having a terrific run game that we just talked about, which I think opens things up for you. So the entire game, no pun intended, is not on his arm or on his shoulders. I think the rest certainly went a long way.
And I think he did a good job of not putting the ball in peril either. I mean, there were maybe 1 or 2 throws, but you're going to have that throughout the course of a game. But I just feel like it was all around, numbers aside, efficiency, the way that the throws were coming out. We talk about the quick game a lot. He was leading backs into screen passes, just everything kind of looked the way that you hoped it would look earlier in the year. And, it didn't, but be that as it may, now you might be getting the best version of him in this offense here down the stretch. You talk about the running game. I absolutely agree 100%. You've got to be able to run the football and have some balance, or not even balance. I mean, I would think that needs to be what you lean into. And the Flames were able to play from ahead in this game too, which is always a good thing. Offensive line, you played 7 or 8 guys. That's been an issue all year, just trying to stay healthy there, trying to get some consistent play. That looked a little bit better, certainly in the pass blocking. Run blocking too, but I'm going to give Evan Dickens a lot of credit. I thought he ran through some tackles out there and kind of made his own way on a lot of those plays. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to be excited about potentially, but you got a new test, a new challenge here this week. And honestly, I think a Missouri State team that might be a little bit better than what we saw with Delaware, certainly from the defensive side. This is a team that defensively, giving up a little less than 400 yards a game this year. They're not bad against the run, giving up 138 yards per contest. That's respectable. No one's really, I don't think, kind of gone off on them. Scoring defense, 27 a game. They'd probably like to be a little bit better than that. But, it's a team that comes out of the Missouri Valley Conference. Coach Chadwell talked about that earlier this week. There's a toughness to them. There's a physicality to them. They're not going to beat themselves. It sounds cliche, but you've had a chance to kind of break them. You've seen about a game and a half. You watched a lot of the FIU game, which they won. Start kind of on the defensive side. What really jumped out to you when you were watching this Missouri State team?
I think that their defensive line is actually pretty good. They seemed to get pretty good push. Several times in that game, they had FIU's quarterback on his heels, kind of making his way back, forcing some throws. That stood out to me. They've got a defensive end that transferred from Penn State. They've got 2 guys on the interior that just consistently were driving the center and the guard back kind of into the quarterback's lap or forcing him to kind of roll out. So that's kind of what stood out to me a little bit in that FIU game. Also, they've got two, I think, pretty talented corners. One is more of a hitter, kind of come up and kind of smack you in the face a little bit more than the other. But they've both been productive this year. Liberty kind of coming off of a good passing performance. Will be interesting to see kind of what that looks like. One thing I would call out, though, is this secondary against FIU was beat for 2 touchdowns from the receiving unit. Both of those touchdowns were on double moves. So, I'm not providing any insight necessarily here, but I'd be curious to see if Liberty tries to attack this aggressive secondary with some double moves, especially if the passing or the running game can get going. But I think if I had to really narrow it down, that D-line kind of impresses me from an athleticism standpoint and just the ability to get push.
Well, you talk about the secondary. I mean, they're giving up 237, 238 passing yards a game. That would be 96th in the country. They're not ranked officially because of the reclassification status, but you do the math, you plug them in, it would be 96th in the country. So, couple
Nick,
of
my one pushback there that I kind of throw this out to folks. They started this season against USC.
Fair.
So keep that in mind. That's a Lincoln Riley offense that throws for like 500 yards a game.
They gave up 73 points.
So let me throw a stat your way. The first 3 games of the season, this defense was allowing 40 points per game on average. The last 4 games, they're allowing 18 points per game, and they've got 4 takeaways. So I think they've started to kind of figure some things out. I only wanted to say that because a couple games early in the season, they really got gashed in terms of points allowed and passing. So I do think it's a better secondary than the numbers indicate.
Well, I mean, let's just look at the conference numbers then, right? I mean, defensively, what they're doing, just conference games only up to this point. Pass defense for Missouri State in conference. Well, they played 4 games. They're still giving up 255. Now that's not as bad, but still ranked 11th. Among everyone else in the league, just in conference games. Run defense, though, they've been stout in league. 4 games in conference for Missouri State. They're giving up 3.9 yards per carry, just about 110, 111 yards a game. So that run defense has been very good against the rest of Conference USA. You talk about their defensive line. I want to highlight their linebacker, specifically Jared Lloyd, Jared Bird Lloyd, the middle linebacker, number 6. He's a great story. Kid's averaging 5.6 tackles a ball game. Redshirt junior out of Daytona Beach. I don't know how many people know this. He was severely injured last year in an automobile accident. I guess an RV, long story short, they were out driving around one morning. RV ran through a stop sign, crashed into the car that he and his teammates were in, suffered a massive injury to his patellar tendon, sidelined him for the entirety of the season. Ryan Beard, the head coach, talked about it with us this week and said, first thought was, forget football. My God, is the kid alive? Is he okay? And he lived through it, had to go through the surgery, the rehab process, worked his tail off to get back here, and he's kind of one of the backbones of that defense. So just a kudos to him. When you see number 6 running around out there on Saturday, just know what he's been through and how hard he's worked to get back here. But he's been one of their more productive players on the defensive side. Good for him. But, I think that this defense will pose more of a challenge probably this week than what we saw last week. Kind of more of an even front. Is that right, Pat? 4-3, they'll run some nickel in there too?
Yeah, they'll have some stand-up edges, but, I mean, you've got 2 interior defensive linemen, 2 pretty athletic guys coming off of the edge. So, yeah, you're right about that.
Offensively, a lot to do with their quarterback, Jacob Clark, who we're going to talk about here in just a moment. But the one other thing that I wanted to hit on with the defense is the secondary you talked about. Dunbar, number 12, probably their best corner, at least statistically. But then also number 14, Thomas Anderson, was Conference Player of the Week a couple weeks ago. I think you said Dunbar's the boundary or Anderson? They run a boundary in a field corner?
The last 2 games, it's been Anderson. 14 has been into the boundary. And he's the guy that will stick his nose up there and kind of smack you around. I want to say he's their 2nd or 3rd leading tackler.
And then Dante Lee Jr. for the Flames going to be matched up with those guys here this week. Dante's had probably 2 of his better games, got in the end zone here this past week. That's a guy that Ethan Vasco has really kind of built a little bit of a connection with here over the last couple of weeks. And something to coin something that Nick Saban used to say a lot of times at the end of games, towards the end of ball games. You don't call plays, you get the ball to your playmakers. And I'm starting to see that a little bit more with Liberty here over the last couple of weeks. Juju Gray notwithstanding, we've talked about Juju all year. He's hurt right now. Just that it is what it is, and it was pretty obvious last week. Coach Chadwell even said it after the ball game. He's a decoy. When they ran him out there last week, I don't know how much of a factor he will be this week. Hopefully, he will be again at some point. But outside of him, they've still found a way to get the ball to Dante Lee, get the ball in Evan Dickens' hands 75% of the game. Jacob Jenkins, we saw him emerge at the tight ends. How long have we been waiting for the tight ends to get involved in the passing game? Jenkins gets in the end zone this past week. So I'm really liking what I'm seeing. I'm interested to see how they match up with some of these corners back there. If Jenkins is covered by a linebacker again, if he's able to exploit some things there. But I'm liking the Liberty attack right now and what Willie Corn's doing. It'll be interesting to see how they match up against the secondary.
No doubt. And it felt to me like Saturday, Ethan Vasco was finally feeling comfortable and getting into a rhythm. We talk about that last drive against New Mexico State where you've got to go 92 yards to win the game. He was, 5 for 5 or 7 for 7 on passing. Ball was coming out on time, on target. You could see that rapport building mostly with Dante Lee. Carried that over into this week's game. So it just feels to me like, I don't want to say that he's finally comfortable in the offense or with the play calling, but it looks like a different quarterback than we saw the first couple weeks of the year.
And, in fairness, I mean, kudos to him because I was really starting to wonder, and we'll see it. Look, you got to do it again, right? You got to go out and you got to repeat it again here. Can he string back-to-back games together like this? I'm starting to wonder, is there another level that he can take it to? And in fairness, he was hurt a lot of the year. So we'll see, as if this offense can continue to string together some efficient performances like this. I think biggest thing is take care of the football and continue to try to get the ball to your playmakers. On the offensive side now, we'll turn it over to Missouri State. Again, mentioned Jacob Clark. How good he is, I think, second in the league in passing efficiency. He's near the top 3 or 4 in most of the statistical categories. He's a really good quarterback. He's an older guy, Texas kid. Was player of the week at New Mexico State, I believe. He's had a lot of success this year, and he's a guy that the Flames are going to have a tough time with here this week, I think. But you've had a chance to watch him, like I said, a little bit closely. The game against FIU, he ended up going 16-27, just 163 yards. Maybe one of those slower games of the year, a couple touchdowns. Yeah, that other guy, he was hurt at one point this year, too, back healthy now. What do you make of him? And what kind of protection is he going to get here this week? Because they do give up a lot of sacks.
They do. That is one thing I've noticed in the 2 games that I've watched thus far, New Mexico State and then FIU, is that, offensive linemen are either getting beat or getting driven back into his lap, kind of forcing him to use his legs a little bit. He's not the most mobile quarterback, but he is someone who can hurt you with his legs. It's not his preferred. He's not a Caden Salter or, to use a name from the past. It's not one of the first things he's going to do, but he'll keep plays alive and he keeps his eyes downfield. And just lets his athletic receivers go find space. So offensive line could be possibly a little bit of an issue for him on Saturday, but he throws a great ball. They will throw a lot of quick game. They come out in a lot of 10 personnel, so you've got 1 back, 4 receivers. They run a good amount of 11 personnel and 12 personnel. The thing that really stands out to me is he's just got a plethora of receivers that he throws to. I mean, there are 5 receivers on this team that have at least 2 receiving touchdowns. For comparison, Liberty has 1 receiver with more than 2 touchdowns. And then 4 of those receivers average over 41 receiving yards per game, which doesn't sound like an incredible amount, but the fact that it's 4 guys or 5 guys that they can get the ball to, I think speaks volumes for just what they think and what they've got at those positions. And then their leading receivers, I'll kind of just spout off receiving or receptions here, but their leading receiver, 25 catches. Number 2 has 24. Number 3 has 21. So they've got several guys in the 20-plus catch area. So a lot of guys can make plays, which is obviously dangerous if you're Liberty's defense having to defend that.
And the run game for them hadn't really been the strong point, 115th in the country, averaging 118 rushing yards a game. Shamari Lawrence just had his first 100-yard game, although he is fourth in the conference among rushing yards per game. Lawrence coming off 104 yards against FIU, a couple of touchdowns, averaged 7.4 a carry. I think that's probably his best game of the year. But they've kind of made their, like you just referenced there, rolling out the numbers with their receivers. They make their living in the pass game. I think this is a situation again for Liberty, man. If you can come out and get an early lead, get up 7, 10, maybe even 14 points by the second quarter, you're going to start to see this defense get aggressive and start to pin its ears back, start to come after. They only had 2 sacks last week, but I felt like there was pressure on Minicucci the majority of the game against Delaware, with the exception of the third quarter. And that's where you saw Liberty start to give up some of those explosive plays, right? You can only cover so long. They're starting to get some chunks. And their receivers, Delaware's receivers, made some pretty good catches too. Give them credit. But there were a lot of I want to say it was 8 or 10 explosive plays. I'll look up the number here specifically, but Flames were giving up some big plays, specifically in the pass game last week. I think it was, let's see, they gave up seven explosive plays in the pass game last week. That's plays of 15 or more yards. And some of them were 31 yards, 35 yards, 41 yards. You want to stay away from that here this week, but Clark's capable of doing it.
No, he certainly is, and I mentioned earlier, FIU scoring on a couple different, scoring a couple touchdowns on double moves. Missouri State, they have a receiver, Rennell Johnson, who they use him on some double moves. They want to get him in space. He's a guy that can take the top off of the defense. He's done it several times this year. So he is one to certainly be worried about. But yeah, I couldn't be more impressed with the quarterback, with his poise and composure, given the amount of pressure that he consistently has in his face.
Thumbing through some notes here, I'm trying to find their pronunciation guide because I want to talk about this kid, but it's their left tackle, and he and Dante Lee, we were talking about earlier, actually went to the same high school together. The only kid on the roster, I think, from Baltimore, maybe the only kid from Maryland that they have, but he's their left tackle, and they just call him Boobay in high school. And I brought his name up, and I said it the other day in an interview that I was doing with Dante for our radio pregame show, and he goes, "Yeah, we just called him Boobay." And I guess they've been Boobay's been trash talking a little bit with Dante Lee here coming into this week, and Dante's like, I try not to talk too much. I just let my game, which I'm not buying. Receivers all like to talk. You guys are the king. You guys talk more than anybody out there on the field, except maybe corners.
We need to let people know the good work we're doing, and we need to let the defender know the bad work that he is doing.
Yes, exactly. But so that's kind of a cool connection there. Not one that I honestly expected to find just going through the research here this week. But Boobay could be a key piece here at that left tackle spot, trying to protect Clark here this week. I'm curious to see what Kyle Krantz, the defensive coordinator, dials up here for the Flames in those pressures this week.
Nick, it's not necessarily a sexy thing to watch, and we've talked about this in the past, but it really will be interesting to watch Liberty's D-line, or kind of the trench battle between Liberty's defense and Missouri State's offense, because it's something that can just absolutely swing the game. If Missouri State's able to let Clark sit back there, he's a quarterback that can kind of pick your defense apart, and he's got the weapons to do it. On the flip side, if Liberty's in his face, similar to kind of what we saw several times last week, there's a chance he's going to kind of give the ball away to you.
We did open the mailbag this week. Didn't get a whole lot, but I did want to get to Nick Pretty's question. He always gives us some thoughtful insight. So appreciate it, Nick. We'll get to a couple questions that he had. One of those we've kind of already addressed, but he said, is the offense alive or was Delaware an anomaly? I think that we've answered that. There's a little bit of potential there based on what we've seen. He said, how can offensive coordinator Willie Korn help get Vasco to play more consistently? For me, it's a simple answer. Just keep calling plays that he can execute. That's keep it simple, stupid, right? I mean, just keep calling plays that you feel like he has a good chance to execute. And I think that's what they really worked on and kind of honed in on those 18 days off. was let's find out, let's review what have we done well this season. Let's get really good at those handful of things. And look, this offense, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, they use a lot of eye candy anyway. I hear that from a lot of head coaches, coming into and defensive coordinators. That's the toughest thing is keeping your eyes right against this with some of the option tendencies and things that Liberty likes to do. There's a lot of ways that the Flames can get back to their base offense out of those looks. Just have a handful of play. You can win a game with just a handful of plays, really, right?
Yeah, no, you certainly can. I think the biggest thing is, and this is going to sound cliche, but winning first down was massive in terms of the game on Saturday, but in terms of putting your whole offensive game plan together. I think
And believe me,
Liberty,
that's something Missouri State wants to do this week, too, because we talk about those sack numbers. They want to stay out of 3rd and long as well.
oh, there's no doubt about that. And I think Liberty on Saturday averaged almost 7 yards per first down. I've said it before, that opens up your entire playbook. You can run, you can pass. The defense doesn't necessarily know what to call, and it makes it tough deciding your personnel to put into the game. So that's a huge thing. If Corn and this offense can average that 6 and 7 yards on first down, you're going to see Vasco be efficient because he doesn't have to, again, put the whole game on his shoulders. So that's going to be big for Liberty, is being productive on first down.
So that's kind of the tale of the tape coming in here to this weekend. Those are some things to keep an eye on. Liberty's red zone defense as well has performed very well here this year. That was something that I was impressed with this past weekend too. Just flipping things back to the defense versus Missouri State offense. Liberty's red zone defense last week did a phenomenal job. I thought, Missouri or Delaware moved the ball a little bit between the 20s. After that, I thought the Flames kind of pinched them off, held them to field goals and that type of thing. Really, it was the chunk plays that got them at points. But yeah, I think those are some things to keep an eye on. Can Liberty who can get the other team in 3rd and long a lot here coming up this weekend? I think that's going to be something else to watch. And what quarterback outperforms the other. Those are some keys that I'll be keeping an eye on here this weekend as well. 1:00 kickoff. A little bit earlier this weekend, 1 o'clock. We'll be on the radio with you 11:30 a.m. Eastern time here in Lynchburg. Got a lot lined up for you. A sit-down chat one-on-one with Flames wide receiver Dante Lee Jr. We will also talk a little bit more about Missouri State with one of their broadcasters will be joining us for a segment there as well. Corey Riggs is going to stop by our booth. He's the Missouri State play-by-play man. And we'll have our Pick'em segment as well. Pat, how'd you do last week? You're part of our Pick'ems. For those of you that aren't familiar, we have a segment on our pregame show on the radio where we pick games, kind of similar to College Game Day. We have fun with it. We keep the standings throughout the year. Pat, how'd you do last week? I don't remember, honestly.
I think I'm 4-3 or 5-2.
Not everybody had a good week. I think Allen was the only one that had a good week. He went like 6-1 somehow.
It's strong push by Allen.
Yeah, Alan York is leading the pack now in our Pick'ems race, which is just for bragging rights at the end of the year. But as we talked about earlier, when you got a former receiver in here, he's got to let everyone know when they're not doing a good job. So
who won
bragging
last
rights
year?
are a big thing. There you go. You won the whole thing last year. So we'll be talking Pick'ems. We'll have a lot of fun on our pregame show coming up here this Saturday, 11:30 a.m. on the radio, 88.3 FM locally in Lynchburg, and on the Liberty Flames mobile app as well. Looking around Conference USA real quick, got a minute or two left here this weekend. We talked about where the standings are. Not a whole lot of great matchups out there, to be honest. It sounds weird, but I'm kind of keeping an eye on the FIU Middle Tennessee game. Middle Tennessee gave Jacksonville State all they wanted the other week. And FIU at 3-5, they're kind of in desperation must-win mode, trying to keep pace to try to get a bowl game. I think they're out of the running for the conference title game. There's no question about that. They're 1-3. But 3-5, you got 4 games left. If you can win 3 of them, you got a shot to get to a bowl game. And with a first-year head coach, and obviously that's who the Flames are playing next. So that's one that I'm going to keep an eye on here this weekend. For obvious reasons, I'm watching Jacksonville State at UTEP, Kennesaw State at New Mexico State. You're hoping, if you're a Flames fan, you're a UTEP and a New Mexico State fan as well this weekend. It'll be a tall task for both of those teams. But if I remember right, I don't know that necessarily Jacksonville State or Kennesaw State are overwhelming favorites in either one of those games.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm just rooting for all chaos, the next 3 or 4 weeks here.
I think you're going to see a good bit of it. We've seen a lot of it from the coaching ranks. But I think even on the field, you've got some chaos that's coming up here. Jacksonville State, just a 1.5-point favorite at UTEP. That is somewhat mind-boggling to me, honestly. Jacksonville State 5-3, UTEP 2-6. But we saw Jack State; they almost lost at Sam Houston. Sam Houston still hasn't won a game. Jack State almost lost against Middle Tennessee. Middle Tennessee's 1-7. I just think that there's from the top to the middle, and maybe even the bottom third. There's not a whole lot of separation in this league this year.
No, there's really not. Plus, I mean, I think UTEP is a tough place to go in and play. It's weird, and Liberty kind of struggled a little bit there. So I don't know. Maybe there's something to that stadium.
Kennesaw State at New Mexico State, that can be a little bit tricky, just going out there, West Coast, long trip, or not West Coast, but Pacific or Mountain Time Zone. That's there. Get it right in a minute. New Mexico State and Kennesaw State, maybe the pressure's on the Owls here a little bit to try to keep that undefeated mark. They're trying to get they've already gotten bowl eligible, 6-2. I don't know. Those are some of the games that I'm kind of keeping an eye on here this weekend from around the conference. It'll be really interesting to see where we are come Monday because you just never know. I feel like Kennesaw or Jacksonville State, one of those two teams, could very well come out with a loss here this weekend, as crazy as that is to say.
Again, I'm rooting for it. Give me anything pro Flames here.
All the chaos. That's what we're pulling for at this point. Well, that'll just about do it here for the show this week. Double coverage, part of the Liberty Flames podcast, powered by Rogers Heating and Cooling, servicing Greater Lynchburg's HVAC and electrical needs. Schedule your service at callrogers.com. Hit the follow button, subscribe to the Liberty Flames podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get us. Also, the Liberty Flames mobile app. Go to your app store, Google Play, download the Liberty Flames mobile app if you've not already done so, and you'll get our shows downloaded directly to you each week right here on the Liberty Flames podcast. So much going on here this weekend. Pat, appreciate you stopping by, giving us some time here.
Yeah, Nick, always good to talk some football.
For Pat Kelly, I'm Nick Pierce. This has been Double Coverage on the Liberty Flames podcast. We'll talk to you here this weekend at Williams Stadium. So long, everybody.
You've been listening to Double Coverage with Nick Pierce and Pat Kelly. Hit the subscribe button and listen each week to this and all podcasts on the Liberty Flames podcast channel from Van Wagner on the Liberty Flames Sports Network.